On tonight's edition of The Overtime, we talk NPA and Flagstaff baseball. Can they make a late season push? Coconino softball begins section play while NPA looks for a second half hot streak. An NAU basketball player has decided to go pro. We will have the details. And finally, spring football practice is underway. What are the keys to the Jack success next season? All that and more next up on The Overtime. Thank you for joining us and welcome to this edition of The Overtime, Northern Arizona's only sports show. I'm your host, Matt Stern. We have a packed show for you tonight with a lot of local sports action, and joining me in the studio is sports reporter Ashley Myshak. Ashley, thanks for being here tonight.
Yeah, Matt, I'm so excited. Let's get to it.
Yeah, let's start things off with some baseball, shall we? After a slow start, the NPA and Flagstaff baseball teams are starting to find their groove. What can Flagstaff do to improve and get their record above the 500 mark?
Now, the Eagles started off slow, but are now creeping toward the 500 mark with a record of 7-10. But where they are really struggling is in their section with an 0-4 record. The Eagles can make a late push in the season, but have to play better within their sections. These are the teams they see most throughout the season and should know what to expect from sectional opponents. Now, their offense is getting much better as the season goes on, but right now they have two players on major hot streaks at the plate. Sophomore Drew Healy is hitting an astounding .429 and leads the team with 11 RBIs. And Wissen, who's hitting .359 with 9 RBIs.
Now, the NPA Spartans have yet to play a home game this year and have a record of 5-6 and a run differential of +5. Now, this tells me that they are way better than what their record indicates. Now, they have been a little inconsistent this year, both at the plate and on the mound. They have 6 straight home games coming up, and I think this is where NPA makes their late push. Their pitching staff shows flashes of brilliance, and if they can find some consistency, the Spartans will be a dangerous team going forward. Now, moving over to the softball diamond, the NPA softball team is hovering around the 500 mark, while the Lady Panthers are off to a very good start in section play. Ashley, what do you expect from Coconino in section play?
Although Coconino has an overall record of 4-10 this year, they're off to a very strong start in section play, winning their first 2 games. If the Lady Panthers can play like this in section play, this team will have a much better overall record by the end of the season. One thing that does concern me, however, is their run differential. Coconino has allowed 146 runs and have only scored 83. If they want to compete for a section title, they need to pitch better and play better defense because right now they're giving up way too many runs.
Now, NPA, on the other hand, has been very pedestrian this year with a 5-5 record. Now, their record is a little bit confusing to me because they are much better than what their record shows. They have outscored their opponents this season 123-84. They have a great lineup and have scored at least 20 runs in 4 games this year. Now, in the month of March, their offense has been on a tear, averaging about 10 runs per game. If the pitching staff can hang on to the lead and keep them in games, this lineup can carry them through the last half of the season. Now, some major news came down from the NAU basketball program earlier this week. Junior guard Chris Yonku will not return to the Lumberjacks next season and has decided to turn pro. He averaged 12.7 points per game and 4.1 assists per game in his Lumberjack career. Ashley, can NAU replace the production of Chris Yonku?
Yeah, Matt. With Yonku being NAU's all-time leader in free throws and ranks 4th in steals and 5th in assists, this is a big loss for the Lumberjacks. But I don't see the Jacks struggling too much next year. They have a young team with 8 freshmen returning next year as sophomores, and they will have more experience going into the next season due to the key roles these freshmen played on this year's team. Some players that I look for next season is freshman guards Mike Green, Marcus DeBerry, and Torrey Johnson. The Jacks also return senior Akko Kaluna, who averages 12.4 points per game and I believe was their best overall player.
Now, this season was very tumultuous for the Lumberjacks, And it is not easy going from a 20-win season to a season where they only win 5 games. And it was a very frustrating season for Chris Yanku specifically. With a very young team around him, he was asked to handle a lot more of the offensive load this year compared to last year because of the loss of players like Quentin Upshur and Asim Dixon. Yanku became frustrated with his new role coming off the bench and was eventually sent home from Reno during the Big Sky tournament for conduct detrimental to the team. I think these events influenced Yanku's decision to leave the team and go pro. He leaves the Jacks in top 5 of several offensive categories and will forever be remembered as a member of the 2015 team which made it all the way to the CIT finals. He will most likely be playing overseas in Europe, and we wish him the best of luck in his pro career. Now, NAU spring football practice began this week as they prepare for the upcoming season. Ashley, how should NAU build on last year's success?
Well, Matt, NAU is in a good place this spring. Last year, this time, they had question marks in the quarterback position, but this year there's no doubt who will be the starting QB. With the returning of the dynamic duo Case Cookus and Emmanuel Butler, as well as running back Corbin Yonke, the Jacks are mostly just focused on building on the success they had last season. Last year, they had a historic year offensively, with both Cookus and Butler winning postseason awards. I believe this team is by far the best offensive team in the Big Sky, and if NAU has any chances in winning the conference next season, it will be on the shoulders of these 2 young players.
Yeah, Ashley, offensively, I expect the Jacks to be as lethal as ever and are the least of my concerns going into next season. Now, where I hope to see improvement is on the defensive side of the ball. In a few instances last year, they showed glimpses of dominance, but more often than not, they would surrender a huge lead and let their opponent back in the game. I would like to see the Lumberjacks work on stopping the run and forcing more turnovers. They will also have to figure out who is going to take the place of All-American defensive back Marcus Alford, who led the team in interceptions last year. Now, this team is in really good shape and will be a legit contender to win the Big Sky next season. Now, coming up after the break, our sports reporter Cheyenne Mumfries went out to NAU women's soccer practice to check out what's going on in their spring season. Don't go anywhere.